meeting is being recorded.
Hi everyone, welcome to the re-record. Fingers crossed it works this time and Zoom is on my side of this 45-minute sketching session. So if you did join me for the live one the other day, thank you. I don't know at what point Zoom decided to cut me off, so hopefully you did all finish. If you didn't, I'm going to recap this all now. If you're waiting for the recording to do, thank you for being so patient. I don't know why Zoom decided it hated me yesterday, but it did. So basically, if you've not done a session with me before, I am, with this particular one, I'm going to draw in 3 colours. So green is just going to be my guidelines. And then I've got orange and brown. The orange will be where the light shading is and the brown will be where the darker shading is. The reason I do that is particularly with the lighter shading, if I'm just drawing in like a normal drawing pencil, it doesn't show up. So like the light shading. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So grab yourself a piece of paper. Grab yourself your pencils, make sure they're nice and sharp. If you are going to just go with grey pencils, ideally, I personally would go with something like a 4H for your guidelines and things like that, and then a B, sort of B2, B3, something like that for your darker areas. You'll find that really helps, makes a real difference. If not, you know, sketch on with your HB and just enjoy the fact that you're having a draw. So with this one, as you can see, I've drawn in some guidelines. So we're going to start off. You can draw this by hand. You don't have to do this by ruler. I am going to start off by drawing a square. So I'm going to draw this in my green, just so you can see what I'm doing. So as you might be able to see, I've done some little very faint lines for me so that I know where I'm putting this. And you guys don't have to sit there and watch me measure things with a ruler. So I've got my square. I'm then going to pretty much divide that into roughly thirds, and I want to put a second line about a third of the way down. If it helps you to kind of, you know, like find where you're going, you can put your other third line in. That's fine. And then roughly the same distance below, I'm going to put in. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is very much just a guide. And then I'm going to put in a 45-degree line. So if it helps, find your 2 corners and then slide your ruler across. So my 45 degrees is there, and I can slide it across like that to get to the line that I want. So again, doesn't have to be exact, you know, just roughly to give you a guide, but we do need this line to be just sort of slid down a little bit. From there, we are going to put in one more kind of straight line, and then we switch over to circles. Always the circles, isn't it, with art? So I just want to so if this is a right angle here, I'm going to slide it slightly and pop in another line across. Okay, that's all done with a ruler. You can just draw those in roughly by hand. You really don't have to worry too much. So I need a bit of a kite shape. So I'm going to draw in a kite from this bit where that diagonal crosses, bisects, yeah, that other line. And what I want to do is make sure that those are the same on either side, because that's where our shoulders are going to go. We're then going to pop in an oval. We're going to have it on that cross, overlapping that cross, but we want it to kind of just be slightly offset. We're then going to pop in a circle in this corner here, a circle just above it, another one below it, but over to the right slightly, one here. This will be our bun. We've got a shoulder sitting here and here, and a little wrist on that line there. One last very big oval. As you can see, we've got this one sitting here. So this is going to be our young lady's bottom. So if you want her to have a nice big round bottom, go wider. She's a bit on the skinny side, go narrower like that. So that's kind of got in. Oh, there's one more that I forgot. Here we go. We're going to have an ankle joint. We've put circles where the joints are. That will help us kind of connect all the dots later on, if you like. If you find it at all helpful, what I can do is basically connect. You don't have to do this, but so you can see where we're going, I'm kind of drawn and connected the joints where the limbs are going to go. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to orange. This is going to clash beautifully with my green. And what I'm going to do as well is, because you'll be pleased to hear, you might have noticed it was shiny, I didn't draw those pen marks all over my lovely original. She's here, and I can see the shading much better now. So I can now, using my orange, so this is of a light shading, just like our guidelines were. I'm going to start to basically connect things up. So big shapes, always start off with your big shapes and then start to add more detail and things like that in. So we have our two biggest shapes are our triangle and our oval. So I'm going to start off actually my oval this time. So I've got this nice hip. It's quite pointed. It's going to come round where our line, this is kind of like our spine up here. We're going to come in, and this is like the kind of crease at the top of her bottom cheeks. And she's going to come down and round. You can go nice and sketchy with this. We're going to join up that shoulder here that she's resting her head on. I'm going to come up. We're just going to scoop in slightly above where our hip is, and we're going to come in below. Okay, let's carry on this sort of underside of her now. So we've got our joints here, here, and here. We want to start to join those up. So we've got a wrist. We're going to come in narrower from the wrist, and as the muscles go up to the next joint, they get bigger. Again, scooping in slightly and bigger towards the next joint. Our hand, we don't have to put too much info on. That's kind of just sneaking out the side of the picture, so we can just sort of fudge that a bit and only really have to worry too much about drawing in our fingers further up on the one hand. Okay, we've got the rest of this arm, so we've got the top of that wrist there. We can put a little bump for this part of the hand. We're going to have a hand finger overlapping, so we're going to leave a little jump, leave a little gap there, come back to it. We're going to have, so her head's going to be resting on the inside of that elbow, so we can come and can actually sketch in her head there. Her buns are never really perfectly round, so I'm going to squash that a little bit, And then although we can't really see anything by the end of this, we've got a little bit of shoulder there. Then I'm going to switch over and do the top. So again, joining up this shoulder joint, we're going to come in just like we did here, and we're going to scoop. The curve on that scoop is slightly more than the one below, and we're going to finish up by bringing this leg from that hip down and over. Okay, back down to this arm. We're still going to leave this hand for now. We've got an elbow. This whole arm here is foreshortened. It's coming towards us, so it's very short. And then we've got, from the joint, we've got this muscle coming up on that arm. Foot and hand now. So the lower part of this foot is resting on this bed or ground, whatever it is she's laying on. So that's going to be pretty much flat. We've got an ankle joint that we drew that circle over. So we're just going to put a little bump, and then we just take that leg into where her bottom is. For our foot, we can start off with adding a little oval like that, and basically it's almost like a little trumpet shape. That gives us the basic shape of our foot. We're then going to take our oval curve, because we've got the heel, and shade all the underneath of that in, and then just, we're going to suggest there's toes there. We're just going to put in a little bit of a wobbly line. We're just suggesting that they're there. We're not actually drawing them. Okay. Oh, now the dreaded arm. Now the dreaded hand. So I'm going to just give my pencil a little sharpen. Hopefully yours looks like this so far, maybe without the green lines. If you have done those, you can rub those guidelines out if you can see them at this point. I quite like leaving guidelines, obviously not in clashing colours. I quite like leaving them on my sketch line so you can see what's happened. Okay, our hand here. So we're going to break this down. We've drawn a circle, but obviously we've got, the circle is really just this bit and not the fingers coming down. So the easiest way to do this is actually think of these three fingers that are kind of together as one entity, and then the smaller little finger as a separate one. Oh, I dropped my pencil. Where did that go? Oh, this is where I knocked the camera over probably. No, oh, that was lucky. So with our fingers, we're going to start off, if you draw almost like a triangle, just sketching that in, longer than you want your fingers to be, because these particular ones, they kind of pull together. We're going to do 3 bumps across the top of the triangle. 1, 2, 3. We're going to leave a little bit of a gap, and we're going to just put in this ever so shallowly curved line that sits between them. 1, we're going to take the next one down straight. We can then kind of loop back up. And the third one, we're going to come down, loop in even more. So we're going to shade those in. The tips of the fingers, we can fudge those. They don't have to be perfect. And then our little fingers just going to be basically just like a little sausage. They're all kind of tucked under, so, and in shadow. So if you've done a great job, leave it quite light. If you kind of, it's not great, that's absolutely fine. Just leave it and we'll put the shadow in. And honestly, viewers' minds and eyes will fill in gaps, like fill in information where they can't see it. So you really don't have to worry too much about that. So we've got our kind of outlines in. We've got her roughly where we want her. the best thing to do with the light shading or the light pencil is to then block in, again, as I said, big areas. Work with your big areas first and then come down to the smaller details afterwards. So let's start, for example, with her head. We've got this light area and a dark area. So I can sketch in a line, a pale sort of oval. This is where I know she's going to be lighter. Same with the bun, it'll be on the same side. I've got a light area of shading on this shoulder here. This kind of also loops up to here. I've got half and half on this arm coming up and around the top of her bun. We've then got a shoulder blade here. And then we've got this scoop out where her waist is. The next kind of area that's really defined between light and shading is on this hip. So we've almost got like a triangular shape. We've then got her spine is here. So we've got this kind of double curve like that. And we're going to have a triangle and a curve there. On her leg, we can pretty much just go down the middle as where the shading is. And for her arm, we're going to curve in from the top of the wrist to the hand. The rest of that is all going to be in shadow. So with your light shading, you can start to shade in. So even though it's only light, you can still change your pressure. So as you come out towards the edge of the arm where it gets lighter, just use less pressure. And I'm going to go along this shoulder here. I'm going to go up right the way across this back. Like that. I'm sure I'll do some of this wrong at some point. Up that leg there. Straight across, so I'm leaving that triangle across the top. And then around the bottom, so she's got a lot more shading on the underside of her because that is in shadow. So she's a lot more solid here. Under there. Bottom half of her leg, and then a little bit of shading and a fade out on her hand to nothing. Follow the arm, so we've got this, the top half is going to be light, the bottom half is going to be shaded. I'm going to go, just for the moment, go round the fingers all the way up to her shoulder here. Okay, so I've got, that one's got a very light bit of shading in. So here's this one. That. Her oval on her hair. Gonna just put in a little bit of shading on those. And I'm going to leave kind of around her until I put in the darker areas of her and then come back so I don't get confused as to kind of where she finishes and where the ground starts. And then also on the fingers, I'm going to just come across ever so slightly and get darker as I go down. Okay, that's a good start. We've got a little bit of shading on her. She's starting to kind of make a bit of sense. So now I'm going to come back. I'm going to start with my brown pencil. And I'll come back and use some more orange and sort of balance up the shading and things like that. But I'm now going to start to get in a little bit more shading to help me kind of know where things are before I start to, well, basically forget and things like that. So I'm going to start off with her hair. this is really dark. So I know I can start off, you know, it's going to be quite difficult for me to overshade this because it's not so important if I overshade it. So because it is going to be really dark, so I'm just kind of doing like a curved loose zigzag from the front to the back. I don't want to put in, I'm not trying to draw individual strands. I'm just almost drawing, you know, like the kind of clumps of hair more than thinking about individual strands. So we've got light, shining, lovely shiny hair. So I'm going to leave the middle and put in just some more zigzags with the gap down the middle. And then with a medium shade, I'm just going to pop in like that. So she's got some light shining on her. She's got some dark, really dark areas. I'm going to put in a few stray hairs, very, very few. Don't get tempted to put too many. They can very quickly look like a bit of a bird's nest. So I'm going to do a similar thing now with the bun. So dark on the right hand side, less of our heavy lines, a few little stray hairs, and our girl has a bit of hair. You can shade it in, you can sharpen your pencil up, get a few nice little sharp individual lines on it. It's up to you. But we've got now our darkest area and we've got our lighter areas, and it just helps, I find it helps me to kind of see what I'm doing and judge how dark I want to go with things. So the next areas that I know that are really dark are along here, on this hip particularly, and on her thigh. So because I know that's going to be really dark, I'm going to go here next. So again, because find me personally, so I start off really dark down here near her body, and then as I come up, a little less pressure. And there we go. Okay, now we've got this shadowy area under here. So I'm gonna start off by putting a little bit of line. We can put a tiny bit of shadow on while we're over here. We definitely don't want to go too dark. We want lots of nice contrast on this. And then here we go, under the shoulder, side of her waist, up to her hip. This is all going to be really nice, lovely shadowed. You can take this line up round here, and I'm going to shave off all of this area here with my dark. She's got a little bit of shadow in here as well. And then she's going to come up to there. She hasn't got much of a bum, my one. So down here we have this kind of scooped area. So this is not as dark. It's a kind of mid to dark kind of shade. I'm gonna take this up there, breaking these down into simple shapes down the side of her body. Got a bit of a shoulder blade going on there, and then we're going to come down under that shoulder. So her arm here is quite shadowy, so you can go straight across the middle of that and then work outwards. Like I said before, we can just shadow over the tips of the fingers. If you're not kind of 100% happy with what you've done, let that fall into shadow. We're going to put in some heavy shadowing on the underneath of that arm and also on the top, because her head's resting there, so, and her hand, you can't see a lot of it. Taking that shadow up underneath her bun, over her shoulder. If you can get away with your pencil not having to do the work and someone who's looking at the drawing, their eye and their brain deciphering it and doing it, then do it. I'm not saying we're being lazy, but we're being economical with our time and our talent. Okay, so we've also got this shadow above her head and this arm here. We're gonna blend that out to the rest of the arm. Got a little bit of a crease there, bringing it in, leaving her hand, her knuckles, we want to leave those light so that they look like they're sitting on top. Now we can take a little bit of shading just under there. So we've got this lovely light area on this upper shoulder and then this lovely dark shadow happening on the underneath. And this is a time where you have a look and it might be actually that shoulder is too light, so we can take over a little bit. And then you get this lovely contrast from the light to the dark side. Okay, her spine here and her shoulder blade. So we're not going for a heavy line, we're just gonna darken in under that shoulder blade a little bit. We're gonna lightly shade from her bun and we're gonna go down ever so shallow curved line where her spine is. And then we've got this, it's almost like a little triangular shape, slightly curved, that we're gonna put in at the base of her back. Okay, I'm going to just run a little bit along the middle of that triangle there. And then I can sort of have another look how we sort of doing with the balance of the contrast of things. Do things need to go a little darker in places? We can't make them lighter. We can use a rubber, but can't sort of drastically change them. But, you know, we don't want to. We're improving as we go. Okay. And I think, I'm just gonna put in, yeah. Okay. Not a massive amount of shadowing on our leg at the moment. And to be honest, we don't want to put masses. It's something that's in a distance for us. Even though it's not a great distance, you still create distance in your art by leaving things that are farther away smaller and less contrasty. So although I'm going to come in with a little bit of brown, I'm going to kind of shade it quite lightly, not as dark as I've done with, or as heavy as I've done with the stuff in the foreground. And I'm just going to really shade the base of her foot and where she comes into contact with the ground. Okay, so I'm quite pleased with her at the moment. She's kind of, I'm just going to pick out of some on her fingers, I think. And yeah, that's better. And then what I want to do is kind of put the shadow around her. I can't really judge her until I've put the shadow in around her. So I'm going to start off with going back. So this is, I'm going to use orange. You can use your medium shading, so your lighter shading, sorry. Particularly, I'm going to concentrate on shading around her where she's lighter to start off with. So I'm going to use horizontal strokes. When you're drawing something that is horizontal or a flat surface, it's always better to use a horizontal stroke because it will help you kind of create the impression that this is something flat and grounded. I'm going to put this shading here, but I'm going to leave a gap underneath her hand because her hand is raised off of the ground. It's not touching, so the shadow, there's a gap between where the shadow will fall and the surface that it falls onto. I'm going to come down now round her. With my light shading. Might leave a bit of a gap and back. Okay, so I think I'll just pop in that bit there. It's looking a little bit better. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. And then just like with her, we're going to go with the dark shading. So give myself a nice line to follow, a nice clean one. I'm going to pop in a little bit of darker shading around her. I can fade that out in places. And that really helps you to sort of see her by putting the shadows on the background around her. It can be really pale, even if you're putting in a very, very pale sort of shadow in the background. Don't leave it just blank. Put something in, and particularly in the lighter areas, it'll give you a bit of contrast against her and make her kind of sit in with everything. So we've got this kind of gap in the middle here. I'm going to come up, and then where she's in shadow, there would be shadow falling on the ground underneath her. So I'm going to pop some in. The good thing about this is that if you've not got your, you know, she's a little bit, you know, in the wrong place, a line's in the wrong place or anything like that, you can bring in this shadow and hide those edges, or especially if you've kind of corrected something, that works there. So, and then I'm going to just fade. This is in the background, so we're fading away. And then coming up to meet this. So you can, once if you need to soften, use the edge of your pencil, or if you've used like a sort of a B pencil, you can use your finger and smudge. So be careful not to smudge it into your white areas, but you can use it into your grey. If you do sort of go down that route, the great thing is you can actually use a rubber and take out highlights and clean those up. So, and then a little spray of hairspray if you haven't got fixing spray will help it to stop from sort of getting any more smudged than it already is. So I think this is a record time because I'm not chatting to people doing the session. I've done this super quick. So final thing to just have a look, see if you've got any sort of edges that, particularly where we marked in the lighter shading, if you've got any sharp edges and things like that, you can go back and just soften the edges. You can build up sort of contrasts of layers between the different kind of areas of light shading and dark shading. So it's you know, this kind of drawing is a progressive thing. It's not a okay, right, that's it, I've drawn a line, I'm done. You can kind of, I won't say tweak to your heart's content, because there's always that danger that you over tweak, but I think a lot of people are scared of going too dark with their shading, or they struggle with kind of the middle ground between the darker shading and the lighter highlights, and you build that up. So there we go. I'm quite happy with her, and I think I'm going to leave that there. So thank you again for the patience of waiting for this session to come out. Thank you if you joined me for the live session. There is the watermelon one coming up next week, which is coloured pencils, and I'm adding lots of new autumnal painting sessions as well. So if you're not already sort of following me on social media, please do. You'll see lots of things on Facebook and Instagram where I have new things coming up and discounts and things like that on the paid sessions. And most of all, if you would love some feedback, if you would like some help, if you've got any questions whatsoever, please feel free to either message me, and very happy to give you some guidance, or if you're feeling brave, and I promise we're very, very friendly and very kind, on the Easily Does It Artist Hangout group, if you want to post your pictures up there and get some feedback, we would love to see them there. So thank you for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you, or not see you, in another session soon. Take care.